Welcome to the DFMI Business Lab podcast, brought to you by the Durban Film Art Institute, presented in partnership with DW Academy, supported by the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. DFMI Business Lab podcast draws inspiration from the 18-week online program which focuses on the business elements of filmmaking, aimed at equipping film producers with the skills to grow their careers. Our host today is Hallie Haller, who is an alumni of the DFMI Business Lab.
Hello, and welcome back to the DFMI Business Lab podcast series, where we unpack the business side of filmmaking to empower African creatives. In today's episode, we're joined once again by Unathi Malunga, one of the continent's leading experts in intellectual property and entertainment law. If you don't know this about Unathi already, Unathi has spent years advising filmmakers, producers, and creative entrepreneurs on how to protect and monetize their work. And she's also developing online courses to help African filmmakers navigate the complex but critical world of IP. I actually first encountered Unathi in the DFM Business Lab. My name is Hallie Haller. I'm a film director and media artist, and I'm really glad to be back here with you, Unathi.
Thank you.
So in the first episode, we talked about IP and really laid the foundations for that. And I think now we can look at how IP affects the next part of the process. How does IP affect a distribution deal? So you've figured out your intellectual property and your chain of title. How does that affect how you get your film sold?
Okay, so in the same vein that a financier funds ownership, it doesn't really fund the film, it funds ownership, and that's why chain of title is important. Distributors fund, they buy from you, they buy rights. So it's very important that those rights are in order. So they don't actually buy the films, they buy the rights because they need proof that you control global or platform specific licenses, so that they can exploit across territories and globally. So really your distribution deal is the engine of your IP because it's actually where the money is made. So I'm always concerned when I see people that they think the distribution agreement maybe is complex and they don't read through it. That's the most important part of your project because it's where the money is made.
Exactly. And so how do you know that your IP is ready to, how do you know that you are ready to go out and speak to a distributor? What are the kind of check boxes you should be going through?
Oh, my word.
From a legal and, standpoint.
Look, I think when it's creatively, at pitch stage, that's why markets like the DFMI exist. There's certain things that have to be in place to pitch. There's certain things that have to be in place to go to a festival as well. And so, there's certain requirements. Each festival will also have their own requirements, just say, So as soon as you feel the project is creatively ready, you've secured all the rights that are involved, and you're ready to go, then you're ready to go. But the financier or distributor will still check. They will do the tick boxing for you. Your lawyer might as well before you go, but they will certainly check because, you see, they're managing their own risk. There's no one who's going to go out and exploit your film globally if something is short, So they're managing their own risk. And often I think as filmmakers, we are very insular. It's a passion project or you're very immersed in the world of creativity and you can't think past the deal and you can't actually think about the considerations of what a distributor, what are his considerations? What is a financier's considerations? And I think that is part of we need to educate ourselves on the business.
Exactly. And and the different stages of it, because I think going into negotiations around actual production and into negotiations about getting the work out into the world are very different things and different skill sets in terms, like, for you to educate yourself on as well.
Absolutely. And, the contracting stage is done the pre-production stage, I think, as well as into the pre-production stage. By the time you are in production and you're shooting, everything should already be taken care of. Your distribution plan should have been thought of at the beginning already as well. So you really have to plan ahead and have foresight, have identified your audience and all of that. The commercial part of it, not the passion part now, but the business and the commercial part of it, so that the project can move beyond borders, move into funding. And so those things are important. The when is important.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we went into this question so early, and actually last time we had this little anecdote moment that warmed us up. So I think I'd like to try to bring that back in, and maybe we can bring it in earlier. But do you have any stories or examples that you could share with us, an anecdote about how important this is, or what opportunities we can access specifically in deal making if we're more aware of our contracts and intellectual property and leveraging that correctly?
I have examples of, I can't go into specifics because of my clients, but I have examples of clients who have done almost as well as a Disney. Do you know what I mean? Because they understood how to move. They understood how to navigate. Even when they brought me in, they already had the knowledge through their life experience. So they understood. A lot of what I do see, which is, discouraging to witness, is when we on international co-productions. And I see a lot of bullying by the international producers of our producers. And I don't know if it's a lack of confidence thing, but our producers really give up a lot, or they become like skivvies, for the sake of having an international deal.
And you really see that on the page, I guess.
Yeah, but you're giving the same value as they are. So they want to access our rebate, you want to access their rebate. You want to access their audience, they want to access our audience. Do you know what I mean? So there's mutual benefit for both parties. And I'm not sure our filmmakers understand what that is and can stand on it and can sell it. Do you know what I mean? I think they just think international money when they think international co-productions, and that's as far as it goes. I don't think they leverage what they bring to the table well enough. So
that is such a great sentiment to open with, to just think about kind of at a more empowered headspace as you're going into deal making.
Absolutely. And if you need the help, then get the help. I also feel, filmmakers would rather go into a bad deal than pay a lawyer, but they want to get paid and they complain about not getting paid, but they don't want to pay other people. So at what point, empower yourself, get the help you need, and let your project run, So I think a lot of it is about perspective and how we see things, and we need to kind of understand the power plays and the dynamics that are always underlying. And I think we think of filmmaking only from a certain perspective, and we're not really open. And those who have dared to venture out have found that, they too have power. When Netflix first came into the country, nobody was pushing back on their contracts. And as soon as I got a Netflix contract, I was like, oh, but what is this? Oh, no. I push back immediately. So they kind of know that I'm going to be the pusher backer. And if I lose a point, I lose a point. But I mean, they give points too. You know what I mean? So if I lose on this one, at least I won the other point or whatever. Sure. It's that kind of tug of war, but where we are collegial and we want the best for the project, but I'm going to go the full hog in protecting my client.
And you were saying that your clients that do the best are the ones that also understand before you even walk into the room. How, for someone that wants to get to that level of literacy, how do we go about that?
I think you start small. So you start with the programs that DFMI is offering. You start with whatever workshops the guilds and the industry organizations. Let me tell you, the value of the industry organizations, people just don't understand. You have a network of professionals operating at every level who are there to guide you. They are there to support you. They are a network, number one. They can refer. You meet them at festivals and markets, and people just don't understand. They think of the membership fee, but they don't think of what they're getting in return. And so if you have a contract that you maybe don't understand, you can start off at the guilds. And I just want to, on that, because the guilds used to have standardized contracts. We are trying to get that back because it's a competition commission problem. So we're dealing with the competition commission on that. Listen, in this sector, we have to deal with the Department of Labor, the Department of Competition and Trade, the Trade and Industry. We deal with arts and culture, and we deal with communications. It's the whole, sure. And never mind the regulators, because we want to get the laws changed. So we have to deal with the regulators as well. So, sorry, I went off on a tangent there. But
it's good to know it's part of the ecosystem, though.
Yes, and so I'm trying to also say we have competition problems as well because of the power imbalances. So they are real. We can't underplay them. You know what I mean? And so the guilds then used to have standardized contracts, and standardized contracts are not a template. I just want to make that clear. So standardized contracts kind of set the floor, and they say, this is what should be in a contract. This is what you should be, and then you can always then negotiate above. Do you know what I mean? So they're not going to give you a price or anything like that, but they're kind of saying these are the things that should be there. So again, that would have to be adapted for that particular deal. But I want to stress the importance of the industry organizations. And now SASFED, of which I was executive director, is a federation where all the organizations come under one roof. And so, yeah. So there are quite a number of organizations for actors, for writers, for editors, for post-production personnel, for producers, obviously. So, yeah, we actually have a good collective voice as a sector. The thing is, you need to plug into it. So I often hear people complaining, or people will stand up at a public platform and complain about something, and then I think this person doesn't even understand what we're doing in the background because they are not part. They're not getting the information. And the amount of information sharing in those industry organizations. So that's how you learn. And then they offer capacity, opportunities and workshops, and you know what I mean? So I would say you start small. You start with the free things. But obviously structured learning is going to move you along faster,
Be the most valuable. And so for someone trying to become more engaged in those industry networks, they could go actually to SASFED, look at what organizations fall under that federation, and engage from there.
Yes. And then join those federations. Join those organizations from there. So the websites are there. You just have to go into the website. You look at them, what they're doing, their work, and the benefits they offer. what your membership fee is. Some of them, even like Animation South Africa, have student rates. I mean, the amount of work that the organizations are doing. Let me tell you, at the moment, the World Trade Organization has a moratorium that is kind of like saying that nobody who's trading on the internet is going to get taxed, okay, to trade on the internet. Now, South Africa is one of 2 countries pushing for us to be taxed to trade on the internet. Now, we have to push back. And it's the industry organizations that do that work.
Yes.
It's the industry organizations that make sure that the environment exists, that people can actually thrive in their day-to-day businesses. So we
and
have
engage with policy, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. So that kind of thing will kid our industry, because we trade with digital goods,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you spoke a lot about co-production specifically, but are there other kinds of cross-border negotiations or deal making? What are the most common? And,
Okay, so there's several methods of how you work with partners, whether they're local partners or international partners. You can do a joint venture, okay, which is just, I would set up an SPV. You bring your company to be a shareholder in that SPV. I bring my company to be a shareholder in that SPV. And we agree on a project that we're going to work together on. Or it could be several projects that we work together on in that SPV.
Unathi, for our listeners, could you just break down SPV, please?
Oh, a special purpose vehicle. So you set up a new company that serves a specific purpose. So it's called a special purpose vehicle. But it is a new company. Okay. So it could be a once-off, or it could be you going to work together in this business with somebody else. So you still keep your production company, and you just both shareholders in this new business, right? Fine. That's joint venture. Then you can do a production services agreement. Now, in the days, the Hollywood studios would come and shoot here in South Africa. But the Hollywood studios are not going to bring their equipment here. They're not going to bring their crew here. They're not going to bring, they don't know South African labor laws. They don't know South African tax laws. They're not going to set up payroll to pay the people. You understand? So then companies like Moonlighting, because there were certain companies that only did this type of arrangement. So they serviced these Hollywood studios, and that's what we call servicing companies. They don't produce themselves, but they render a logistics service to these Hollywood studios that came to film here. And they will offer them all of that, the logistical support of shooting in South Africa for a lovely fee. It's a very lucrative business because you're not bearing any of the risk and you're not sharing in any IP. It's a straight up logistics deal.
It's a huge part of the commercial industry as well. Yeah.
But a lovely fee. So then you have that. And then you have your co-productions where you are both producers. One is from another country or one can be here. I mean, co-productions can be domestic co-productions as well. And you decide that you both have things you are bringing to the table. You want to work together on a specific project. So maybe one's going to go out and source financing, or both of you will source financing. But one is going to be like the creative lead and one will be the business lead. And it's those kind of nitty-gritty details that need to be sorted out in your negotiation. And it's all well and good to say, no, we'll work together. But you need to understand, okay, where is the bank account going to be opened? Where is the money going to flow? What are the cash flow tranches? Okay, where does the risk lie if anything happens? Which production company is going to sign off at the bank? Is it going to need 2 signatures of signatories or 1? Do you understand? All that nitty-gritty needs to be sorted. It's not about let's work together and off we go. Then we've got the co-production treaties that have their own requirements. So we might as well get the benefit of those treaties, because with those treaties, if we do a film, just say here, and a UK producer, that film is recognized as a South African film and it's recognized as an official UK film as well. And it opens that audience. So there are lots of benefits, but it does make it significantly legally complex, more legally complex, and even just resource. You think you're sharing resources, but actually you might be doubling as well. You know what I mean? So there's some downsides, but there's some benefits as well, and it's a matter of trying to balance the two.
What makes it more legally complex?
Well, just what I've just explained to you, all the questions that the lawyer has to ensure are answered logistically. So what happens if the budget changes, or what happens if there's underspend? Where does that money go? How is it going to be used? What happens if there's overspend? Where is it going to go? Who has the last? If there's a deadlock, who has the final? Do you see what I'm saying? Because
a deadlock, like you can't come to any kind of agreement, and so the project hasn't moved forward. Yes.
So you got to sort out those issues because they're real issues and they can arise. It doesn't matter how happy the couple is now. It's like a marriage, So we can get on well now, but when trouble comes.
Yes, exactly.
You've got to have a mechanism already now while things are happy about what are we going to do when trouble comes. You don't wait till trouble comes to then say, okay, now what are we going to do? You put the mechanism in now. So co-productions can be a lot more complex. Then the one wants UK law to govern the contract. You want South African law to govern the contract. Then we have to come in and say, okay, let's have the venue in South Africa, but applying UK law. Or let's have you find a middle ground that's fair for everybody. Or you just tell the UK producer, we're having it in South Africa because actually South Africa is cheaper for you too. Or if we're having an arbitration, then we're going to do it virtually, but this is where we're going to go and find our arbiter. So you need to, all those things need to be agreed right up front. The time frames of how long are we going to give a dispute before we take it to mediation?
Huge.
You see what I'm saying? How long are we going to give ourselves to get to an amicable resolution? And then what happens if we can't? You know what I mean? So all those details, not that some of those details aren't in normal agreements, but as I say, you're dealing with a party from another country, or it becomes complex.
Are there any really common oversights or mistakes that creatives make going into international partnerships?
Really basic ones, I think, like not understanding, maybe they option someone from an international agency, they option a book or whatever. Look, the agencies are quite good about giving their contracts or whatever, but I've seen really basic mistakes, whether it's a local deal or an international deal. Our producers don't know their work. They don't know their business. So you'll enter into an option agreement, but your option agreement doesn't have a purchase agreement attached to it. Basic things. But so you've gone and bought rights, but your option is null and void because you don't have a purchase agreement and you don't even know it. But the day you want to exercise that option, you will know it.
Yes,
you see what I'm saying? So we sit for a long time in our mud without even realizing that we are in mud. We don't educate ourselves on our business. We are only interested in the creative part of the business. I mean, that I'm not trying to offend anybody, but that's the bottom line, and No one is expected to become a lawyer. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying learn the business that you're in.
Yes.
If you're saying you're in a particular business, it is your responsibility to learn the business that you're in. You know, I often say, if you've seen stars like, gosh, who comes to mind now? Toni Braxton. Let me just say Toni Braxton. These stars who go bankrupt and then they complain about, oh my gosh, I didn't know I trusted somebody and, you know, this is what they did. The thing with, you can have an expert like a lawyer or an accountant in your corner, but you've got to know enough to see the books and to be able to tell that this person is cheating you.
Sure.
Do you see what I'm saying? It's not enough to not know nothing and still have the expert, because you won't tell when they're cheating you. I've often looked at financials or something and said, something doesn't sit right. I don't know what it is. I'm going to take it to my accountant to figure it out, but something just doesn't look right.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? I don't know finance as well as I should, but I know enough to say, something that is not adding up here. And if you don't at least have that, because you can't go call a lawyer for every decision you have to make. Do you know what I mean? So there's a certain amount of education you do have to have, you know?
For yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
And so for writers and directors as well who are working with producers, I mean, in the same way that you are saying producers should be sense checking their experts, is there some kind of due diligence that creatives should be doing with their producers in making sure that certain things are getting done, or some awareness they should have around that?
I think you should know what information your producer should be giving you. So things like, you know, if like, for example, and it's mostly around broadcasting as well. So for example, when the broadcasters don't give the reporting of local content that they're supposed to be giving, okay, they're supposed to give a report on local content stats annually, or is it twice annually, but they're supposed to report and it's supposed to be made public, right? But they don't do it. For years they haven't done it. And ICASA, who's supposed to be enforcing that, hasn't done it either. So I say to the writers, why do you need that information? And the writer says to me, because I also need to develop my audience plans based on that information. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you know what you need the information for, then that's the kind of information that you can put in a contract that you want from the producer.
Got you.
Do you see what I'm saying? So when, for example, in the Netflix contracts, it never says that they will report to the producer about how well it does. But I think when they meet with the producers, they say they'll report. But if they take licenses for 7 years, but they only report the performance of that film for 2 years, what must you do for the other 5 years? Sit and twiddle your thumbs. Do you see what I'm saying? So once you know exactly what you need, then we can negotiate that information is then presented. But producers are not going to open their books to you because they don't have to. They don't have to. Yeah. Yeah.
And what the reasoning is. Yeah.
So,
that's good advice.
Yeah. So everybody always wants to know what is the budget, you know, and I don't think it is the business of the rest of the value chain to know what the budget is. I think the producer, but provided the producer is paying people for the job that they're doing and paying them fairly. Once the producer is not paying them fairly, that's when people want to know what was the budget. Do you see what I'm saying? So so it's those dynamics that we also deal with and trying to address within SASVED. But we can really only address them with our own member organizations, who then can address them with their members. But we cannot address that outside of the membership because we don't have the control. Yeah.
So we're back at engage with your industry and its organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess there's also a lot of peer learning in that, you know, hanging out with other
Absolutely.
directors who tell you what they've been through. That's a lot of the time how you're actually learning.
But the information sharing, the opportunities that are shared, you know, I can't, I mean, when I think about the amount of information I pass on to everybody, whether it's opportunities or funding or this or that, if you're not plugged into those networks, good luck.
That's really great advice.
On your own, you know, I don't know how people go it on their own. Yeah.
So I think you may have answered this question already, but I'll ask it in case there is more. Is how should filmmakers avoid kind of being taken advantage of or avoid exploitation, specifically when working with bigger partners or partners they perceive as bigger, which I guess is a lot of the situation as you've described it with South African creatives specifically?
You cannot always be on the back foot. You have to, again, it comes back to what do you know? Because you are also bringing value to the table. And until our producers see that and the value that they're bringing, remember that you don't want mistrust in this relationship with your partner. So you must play open cards. There must be certainty. The minute you start having vagueness, it's a problem. The vagueness, and people love the vagueness, right? The vagueness really, because they're avoiding stuff. They're avoiding, but the vagueness is going to bite you in the end because there's no certainty. So there must be certainty. And if you have, if you need the help, then get the help. You know what I mean? So again, it's about being aware of what's going on and getting the help you need. And don't assume goodwill. Don't trade on relationships. Don't trade on goodwill. Put the stuff in writing. That's it. Put it in writing, because that's also where you'll see somebody who wasn't serious. When they have to commit to something on paper, they'll run. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's a whole lot of dynamics that, but it comes also with experience. I mean, I'm not expecting a filmmaker walking out of film school to kind of know what's going on and to navigate. But that's where the earlier they plug into the organizations, the earlier they learn. The more workshops they attend, the earlier free workshops, you know, then the more they learn. There's an amount of taking responsibility for your career that has to happen. Yeah. And
understanding that can happen through peer learning and through these organizations, and it doesn't always have to be that you're going to take a Stanford short course or something. You know?
Yes.
There's that assumption that there's this hurdle a lot of the time.
No. And yes, it's going to cost you a membership fee. But look at those membership fees. I think those membership fees are like, cheap, you know.
Yes.
For what you get in exchange.
In comparison to the cost of not going. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And join for a year. And if you don't get the benefits, then then go out on your own. But again, the people I see stand up in public forums complaining are people who are not plugged in. It's always the people who are not plugged in. And then there's also this thing where we're duplicating what is already established. So people like to do the breakaway and go set up their own little corners because they don't want to mix with others.
And there's an existing organization that does this work, There
are sector dynamics that we also are addressing. So, I'm not here saying it's a hunky-dory sector and it's a happy sector or whatever. But I mean, I also don't buy the narrative that government tries to tell us that, oh, you guys are so fragmented. because it's a narrative that we hear from government about the creative industries in general. And I always say not audiovisual. You can take that to music, you can take that to any other creative industry sector, but not audiovisual. You can't tell us that audiovisual is not organized, because we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. The structures are there.
And there's a lot of community centered, because we work in community. Yeah.
Yeah. But the structures are there. So the documentary filmmakers have a structure. The animation, you know what I mean? Everything is there. So you can't tell us we're fragmented, but you want to remain outside the structure.
And
you know,
there is an opportunity to be represented. Unathi, I had other questions, but we've kind of woven those answers into this in a great way. Is there anything maybe that I haven't addressed that you would speak to? Some like advice that I didn't know to ask for?
Let me see. Gosh, we have discussed a lot of it, hey?
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit. I can talk a little bit about ancillary rights. We did talk a little bit about it when we were discussing.
Sure. I'm just going to quickly try to move out the sun a bit.
Sorry.
No.
About the other rights that you can leverage from your project. So, so copyright works this way. I can do a stage play named Sarafina, and that has its own copyright. And then I can turn Sarafina into a film, and that has its own copyright. I can turn Sarafina into a TV series that has its own copyright. I can make little girls in uniforms as merchandise, and that has copyright and trademark protection. We can do a spin-off from one of the characters of Sarafina, and that is a new, that has copyright. And all these works are possible income streams from the same project. And we don't do enough of that. We don't do enough of exploring what more can come from this one gem project that I have. The same with Lion King. Lion King did the same thing. The same with, there are projects that have gone on Broadway, from stage to Broadway to film to this to that. Same project. There are projects that take a character from the main project and go into a spin-off. All different income revenue streams. Shaka Ilembe now has kind of gone and in a bit of tourism as well. Do you see what I'm saying? We don't identify the opportunities. Firstly, we may not even make properties that are capable of those opportunities because we're so busy chasing passion projects. We should be making commercial projects that will fund your passion projects later.
And
but we are all running around. Yeah, you have to make the money first to fund the passion projects. You cannot start with the passion projects. You need to start with commercially viable projects. And then, you tap into all these other revenue streams. So people don't think about their work commercially enough. And then, that's when the opportunities and the contracts also can protect you and that kind of thing. So I don't think we had discussed that. So I just wanted to raise that.
And that's ancillary rights.
Yeah, it's ancillary rights. Ancillary rights are the other rights. So like merchandising, stage play, radio drama, and then derivative works are coming from that one project. So what I'm saying is there are opportunities that we don't necessarily see, and I don't want to say we're working too hard just on the basic property, But I'm saying we are putting a lot of stock into getting a film made, and then we move on to the next film.
Having this once-off sale success,
Yeah. There's not enough thinking at the beginning, strategic thinking, let me put it that way, about where else can this go? Who would be interested? What brand could I approach? You know what I mean?
What are the other audiences that I could take this to that like live beyond a cinema and a TV channel? Sure. And instead of building a brand new universe, can I, find more value in this one?
Even with festivals, people don't think enough about what kind of film, is that an audience festival or not? What kind of film does that particular festival? They don't have festival strategies. They just want to go to a festival or have their film invited to a festival. Like, we're running around blind. You know? There's not enough business in us. And that's a call for action. It's not a critique. It's a call to action that we...
And an opportunity.
Serious. Yes. You know. And Netflix, you know, the streamers are doing less and less work in Africa. And when the streamers came in, I warned filmmakers. I said, you can't throw away the broadcast stuff. You can't throw away the broadcasters because everybody's running after the streamers. Those broadcasters need to keep the business going, and those broadcasters are our bread and butter. The streamers are not your bread and butter. The streamers came here and worked with 6 production companies or however many they worked with. You know what I mean? So strategy. There's some thinking work behind what we do if we want to take ourselves seriously. You know? Yeah.
Thank you. I think what's been so great about this episode is that it's been so solutions oriented. There is community you can get in industry. There are ways to educate yourself. A lot of it is, you know, peer-to-peer or through these networks, and that there are more opportunities that we can maximize in the individual projects that we take on. And I think just hearing that there is a way to fix all this, or there's a path through, because I think sometimes as a creative, it feels like there are aspects of the work that you can't fix or you wouldn't know how to even begin. So I think just thank you for that. And I'm sure our listeners will feel the same way. Thank you for giving us your time. And I think this was, as you hoped it would be, a really empowering episode. And I think we have replaced confusion with clarity. So this brings us to the close of our 2-part discussion on intellectual property and the business of film with Unathi Malunga. And so across these conversations, we've learned about the value of protecting your intellectual property. We spoke today a lot about deal making and how to kind of understand your worth and leverage the work that you are doing correctly, and the opportunities in IP that we actually haven't seen or aren't currently taken advantage of. So on behalf of the Durban Film Art Institute, we just want to thank you, Unathi, for sharing your time and your knowledge and experience. And thank you to our listeners for joining us in this vital conversation as well. So stay tuned. Of course. Yeah, thank you for joining us. And for everyone out there, please stay tuned to the DFMI Business Lab podcast series for more insightful discussions designed to strengthen and professionalize Africa's creative industries. So until next time, keep learning, and above all, keep protecting what's yours. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you learned something new, or that you felt compelled to further interrogate your professional practice. Never miss an episode. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, or sign up to filmart.africa for exclusive video content from this episode, where the African film industry unites.